Sanbonani young minds, and welcome to a space for young minds. Today I am joined with the beautiful, phenomenal, and young lady Sthandiwe Msomi. Young as she is the founder of Candid Conversations, co-founder of Khanyisa South Africa, and co-founder of Finance Journey. Today she'll be sharing with us her experiences during COVID-19 and how she is currently overcoming the obstacles that come with COVID-19 as a young entrepreneur. Nomdai, how are
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for accepting this conversation, for accepting this invitation.
No, it's always a pleasure. I love the work you do as well, and it's always good to engage. So I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you so much. And you actually inspire me.
Oh my word.
Yes. I think your channel as well, the work that you do is what inspired me to just change the narrative of my YouTube channel. No longer about hair, just about content that will actually inspire young people and for us to actually get to learn more from others.
Yeah, that's beautiful to hear, because there's days where I don't feel like my work is, or rather matters, because we all go through those things, but I think the beauty in it is that as we all share ourselves and what we have to give to the world, we unnoticeably inspire others. So hearing that as well inspires me to keep curating conversations and advocating for things that I feel really matter, both entrepreneurially and in the nonprofit space. So thank you.
I actually am in love with your the initiatives that you've started. Please, can you actually tell us more about the three of your the organizations that you're a part of? Let's start off with Khanyisa South Africa.
Cool. So out of the three, I must say, Khanyisa Foundation is like my favorite baby. Khanyisa Foundation is an organization, a nonprofit organization that I started last year during COVID with my aunt and Ntombi Msibi. And it was about time we actually started it, because when we first moved to where we live now, Ekhaya, Hillcrest, in Durban, and when we first moved, firstly, we were just shocked to see how wealthy people are, because we moved from Montclair to Hillcrest and we're like, people live like this, but then what became worse was not far from Hillcrest. If you drive on Inanda Road and you just carry on driving, the road and the houses change from these big fancy mansions to gravel and 4-room houses and shacks in a community called Moulini. And how we ended up going there was, when we moved here, there were hardly any black salons in the area because it's a very wide area. And we'd ask the ladies, not ShopRite, sorry, but the local malls that are here, we'd ask them, we'd see, where do you guys do your hair? And they'd direct us to ladies who have salons in the township. So we used to go there. And then I saw it. And back then, I didn't really have the impetus to start an organization, but the realization that there really is a difference between the haves and the have-nots. And it's shocking that you just need to drive 10 minutes away from where you live to realize that you might as well be in a different country, because the way in which people live are totally different. And then when COVID happened, obviously poverty, inequality, and all the other socioeconomic issues that we have got so exacerbated, and we had to do something. And so our first project was a food drive. And all we did literally was just create posters on social media and spoke to people who we know to donate funds or food that we could, use to donate to communities and families in Moulini that would be affected by the loss of jobs, the increase in food and prices and all of that. And that's the first project we did. And we got support from the local councillor, and it was really, really successful. And then after that, we realized that there's so much more we could do in the community. And as much as when you start an NPO, you want to start big, realize that, let's start off with the community right next door in Moulini and see what we can do. And from there, we started asking ourselves, what are the necessary resources and programs that are needed in a community like Moulini to assist abantu abasha in that community, at least be a level up from where they are, to be able to compete with the kids in Kuro and Thomas More and Kersley, schools that are right by, And so we then chose to focus on projects around education, entrepreneurship, and development. And so from the food drive, we had a seminar for young girls. We had a confidence building seminar, and we engaged in activities on, you know, building yourself and talking about what you like about yourself and developing that confidence. Because I think another thing that affects abantu abasha in townships and rural areas is a lack of confidence, you know, and that's so necessary in the world we live in today. So, you know, from there, we've just been evolving and doing more projects. But with the Khanyisa Foundation, really, we started it from nothing. It was just using what we had, using social media, using who we knew, and creating something that's grown and hopefully will grow, you know, in time to impact not just abantu Moulini, but to impact, you know, people in townships and rural areas all over the African continent. So we've got a lot of work to do. I think even the times that we're in right now in our country have shown me there's so many things we need to do in the Black community. So the Khanyisa Foundation is just existing to bring light in our communities, I'd say that. So that's the Khanyisa Foundation. And then the second baby is Candid Conversations, but it actually is part of my bigger media company called Msomi Media. And Candid Conversations is the first media brand that I created out of that company. And there's so many other media brands that I'm planning on launching this year and very, very soon. So Candid Conversations is one of the first. And it really started as a blog that I created because I'm super passionate about using the power of media and conversations to talk about things that are relevant to us as the youth, relevant to us in the African continent, and relevant to us as young people. And so I usually post blogs there centered around African issues, so the political, social, economic issues that we go through. I post content around feminism and women empowerment and gender-based violence, and just ordinary conversations of what a young person goes through in this country, or from my perspective, and other people as well who've contributed to the platform. So it's really just a community to have honest, real, unfiltered conversations about the things that, you know, when you walk into a room and you sort of want to say it, but you can't because you have to like maintain this sort of formality just because as adults, we feel the need to sugarcoat everything. And it's that platform where I go to, you know, it's that platform where I go to and say, and let's not lie about it. And a lot of those issues that I write about are racism. This year, for like from Jan till May, I had an internship in a predominantly white company, and I was the only Black doing intellectual heavy work, you know. And in that setting, I found myself not being able to say quite a lot of things because in this country we've got huge racial barriers that we have to, you know, overcome. And it's that platform that I go to and say, you know, things could be different. And other like-minded young people who have conversations to start, I also open up a platform to them. So that is Candid Conversations. And I'm really excited to launch more media brands under the Msomi media company, because I think as young people, we need to really take hold of the media before the media takes hold of us. There's so many companies that have existed for a long time that own a lot of media brands. One is Naspers, you know, and the people who sit on those boards don't look like us. They don't know what we go through. And so it's so easy for them to you know, start newsrooms and websites and blogs that tell us, you know, about what's going on in our country, in our world, from a very biased perspective. And for me, this period of time has motivated me even more to be more daring about the media brands that I launch, because media shapes how you perceive the world and how you perceive yourself. And I think there's a demand for content that will help young people, especially young Black people, see themselves in a different light as opposed to what, I guess, the current media space presents. So that's the second baby. And then the third is the Finance Gym. The Finance Gym is one of my favorite. I co-founded it with my co-founder, Usihle Hlatshwayo. We did have a third partner as well on the company, and he you know, left for brighter waters last year. But the Finance Gym is formed with an intention to increase financial literacy rates rather in our country. Our country has a huge financial illiteracy problem, from young to old, and again, predominantly, you know, the Black population, because of things that may have happened in the past. Finances never became a really commonplace conversation, because what's the point of talking about money if you don't even have it? You know, if for you it's just more, you know. I think we obviously our parents may have been the first generation to acquire some sort of wealth, or some sort of financial stability. But even then, it was a means of just survival and using it for the everyday, purchases and stuff. And so after seeing that and realizing how there is a financial illiteracy problem, we started Finance Gym, and again, it's a content-based company. So we create content based on financial literacy through articles and website and blogs and videos for our own websites, as well as other companies that ask us to write content on their platforms for their own audiences. We've got ton of events online as well that we usually host, and a lot of our work is based online. And we did start it during COVID as well, so it just became way more obvious to do everything online. But then again, it's for social impact. And I think that's the common thread between everything that I do. It always has to have the social impact. Otherwise, it doesn't really fulfill me, So those three organizations are three different facets of myself. But I think the underlying thread is the fact that I believe we all have something to contribute in the world. And I've been very privileged to get an education, to be raised in a family that prioritized me and my development, my education. And especially if you're Black, you have a responsibility to share that with those around you and those who may not have had those opportunities. And that's what I just try to do with every company I start.
Wow, that's just so inspiring. It's beautiful. It's amazing, actually. Which of your three babies suffered the most because of COVID?
Oh my God, that's quite a weird question, because I started them all during COVID. But I must say, I think the one that has suffered is Khanyisa, partly because we target rural and township areas, and the people there don't have constant Wi-Fi or enough, data to log on to an hour and a half Zoom session, So there have been quite a few projects that we haven't been able to do, especially when we were still level 5 and level 4. It got better at level 3 and level 2 because then we were able to have physical events. But at the moment, we can't have quite a few events that we wanted to have because we can't have social gatherings. So the biggest one that we're still trying to navigate is finding out how we can still reach young people in rural areas and townships when COVID levels are still high. And so we're still trying to figure that out, because my motto is, if you can do something with what you have right now, do it. And if you don't do it, it's just an excuse for you not to, or you're just procrastinating, So it is quite a challenge. The other two are purely online, so that's perfectly fine. But it is definitely quite a challenge to reach, people on the ground while still trying to navigate COVID regulations.
Yeah. Oh wow! I love your organization, Khanyisa organization. If I were to be a part of such an initiative, what do I need to do? I'm not only asking for myself, but I'm asking for others out there who are actually interested. What can we do?
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome, because Ndombi and I, we were just talking the other day, and we were saying we can't do everything ourselves. We need people who represent Khanyisa on the ground in their own communities, activating and motivating and mobilizing people in their communities when we have projects or events, So I think the first thing for anyone who would want to be involved in Khanyisa projects is firstly alignment with what we stand for. If you are super passionate about seeing the African continent develop, if you are conscious of why it's actually important for our communities to develop, because I think what this time in our country has shown me is that a lot of young Black people who are more privileged don't really understand why it's actually important for us to address the issues that we have in our country. It's so quick to dismiss people and say, oh, that person is lazy. Oh, that person udlala ngesikhathi. Why did you get pregnant at a young age? Why did you drop out of school? But when you read quite a bit of history books, and I'm a huge history fanatic, when you read a lot of history books about what happened to our continent, what our ancestors went through, and the actual details that we aren't taught in high school about the effects of colonization and apartheid, for me, it then impressed upon me to say, yo, I've got to do something, because the people who came before me, they kind of died for nothing, and that for me inspires me on days when I don't want to do the work, to say, okay, it's bigger than me and this project needs to happen. So if you understand the depth at which this continent actually needs to develop, with the African person realizing it, not the UN or other external organizations coming in and giving us what they think is good for our continent, then you'll definitely be an asset to Khanyisa Foundation. The second is, I think, hard work and drive to organize resources, because a lot of the time when you are organizing things and you're working with external sponsors, it can get difficult. I remember a week before our last event, which was a prize giving for a writing competition we were hosting. A week before it, all the sponsors we had spoken to went MIA. We literally went MIA and we're like, we have an event next week Saturday and things are not coming together, but luckily, people started to communicate and everything went beyond what our expectations were. But if you have the leadership characteristics to be self-enterprising, so if you're a hard worker and you can organize stuff without actually being told, obviously there is a way that we work, but we love working with people who take the initiative to make things happen and who are passionate about it, then you'll definitely fit in super well with the Khanyisa team. And I think the third is knowing what your community needs, because the approach that we've taken in a lot of our projects, well, obviously when we first started, we came in Moulini and did what we think we needed to do. But when we did our last event and our last initiative, like the writing competition, we reached out to an organization called the Moulini Resource Center, and it's a resource center in Moulini that is usually responsible for dispensing a lot of information to the community members. So we spoke to the manager there, and we formed a great relationship with her, and she gave us the background on how Moulini came about, what are the problems that they face in the community, and how have they gone about trying to solve it. So we've moved away from the approach of trying to come up with what we think the community needs, and we love working with people who are aware of the needs of their community, who are passionate about solving them, and who can give us ideas on what we can do, and then we find the resources and we make it happen. So those three qualities I think would make you the best Khanyisa team member or ambassador.
Okay, that's great. I love how passionate you are. I love your drive. How did you have?
For me, my dream, especially with the Khanyisa, is I definitely want to see us in the next 5 years building actual learning centers and academies in rural areas and townships, where young people can go there and escape the realities of just the Black child struggle. Sometimes it's too much thinking about where your funding is going to come from next year, thinking about whether, you walk on the streets and you'll get raped or not. It's a lot, and I guess the very essence of the name Khanyisa, to shine a light, is for us to create opportunities in communities that give people hope and really shine a light that they can move towards. So my dream is to build learning academies, and I need money for that. So I'm definitely in my goal of becoming wealthy in this life. A lot of it is linked to being able to finance the dreams that I have for my own family and for the communities around me. And I also don't like the biggest thing that I learned through Khanyisa is that you don't need a platform to do things. Yes, I post a lot of the things we do at Khanyisa, and I do have quite a big following, but I realized that I don't need to have a big platform to do something, and I don't need to have a title to do something, because titles, yes, they're great, they're nice when people say, oh, you're an entrepreneur, you're a philanthropist, but I'm just someone who really is conscious of the things that God puts on my heart to address and solve, and I just do it. So if that's an activist or a philanthropist, that's fine. But it's too early for that. Maybe call me in the next 5 years and then I'll say, yeah, I'm a philanthropist. I've donated 2 million rands to a school.
Yeah, true. And when you talk about the title, it's rather best to be someone but not have a title, but have those leadership qualities. Because 100%. As soon as you are now known as a leader, it's very hard for you to actually fulfill people's expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. I think there's something I once heard TJ say, I love watching his sermons, and he always says that in this life, his goal wasn't to be famous. His goal was to be effective. And as a consequence of him being effective, he's now become famous. And that for me was like, oh my God, in this generation where everyone is rushing to be, the best influencer, have 1 million followers, or, have certain titles, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram or other platforms, the following really means nothing if you're not being effective. And we're all effective in different ways. Some people are effective in makeup and beauty. Some are effective in advocacy. Some are effective in technology. And, that's great. But I think the biggest thing that we as a generation need to understand and know, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur or a social entrepreneur or an innovator, is that the biggest thing that matters is working on your character and who you are. Because before we jump to want easy or like materialistic things and pray for stuff that we, want to show off, we need to more so pray and ask for the wisdom to become the people that we were meant to become. Because once you do that, then you attract the fame, you attract the material stuff, you attract, all the things that we love and enjoy as human beings. Because obviously you want to live a nice life. But I think for me, everything changed when I started looking at how I can develop internally, not for material gain or for external applause, but for being obedient to the purpose that is on my life. Like, your responsibility as a person is to follow the call of that thing that you're supposed to do. So if you're supposed to write a book, if you're supposed to start that YouTube channel, if you're supposed to start that business, you need to just be obedient to that vision and that calling. Whether that book sells or not, that's none of your business. And I mean, if you're Christian, God will, and if you do believe in God and what universe, whatever you believe in, you have to trust that good things will come to you, but I think the focus should definitely be on doing the thing that you are passionate about doing, or you feel that you're led to do. And whatever happens after that, the titles that other people give you, other people will call you, an innovator or a trailblazer. But I think it's just being committed to ensuring that everything that's inside of you comes out, and you develop yourself enough to handle all those things and trust that everything after that will come.
Hear you. You'd mentioned that one does not really need a platform to actually start something. I've always felt that I need a platform. I need so many followers in order for me to be able to start something. I would always be comparing myself to other people that I see on social media and thinking, I'm not good enough. Should I even start to do this? Should I begin? And what I've learned is that you should work with what you have.
100%.
Others are privileged enough to have, I don't know, a camera. I don't have a camera where I can start a YouTube channel. Others started with having someone who had actually invested in their ideas, whereas some people can just start an initiative and probably go out there and search for sponsors to help them achieve that dream. And here I am listening to you. I'm actually ashamed. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I'm sitting here and I'm expecting God, to give me something, show me the way so I can actually make that dream happen. Whereas God will help you if you help yourself first.
100%.
Just pray about it, but not do anything about it.
Let me tell you, when we started Khanyisa, I was broke. Literally didn't have much at all. All I had was quite a big following on social media and people that I knew, and I used that to fund the first project. Like I remember I got a message from a young girl that was in high school with me. I think she was in grade 8 or 9 and I was in matric, and she sent me a DM on Instagram about a few months ago, and she was asking for advice because she wanted to start a foundation as well. And then she asked me, how did I get funding for the projects that we've done? And I told her straight up, I didn't have money when I started Khanyisa Foundation. It's just leveraging on what I had at that time to fund that project. And a lot of the projects that we did after that were funded by myself and Dombi. We don't have like 1 million million rands of funding that we get to make projects happen. And we did have a few sponsors who chipped in here and there, but a lot of the stuff that we've done, we either didn't have much or we took what we had from our own pockets to finance it, because that's how much we believed in it, you know? So I think a lot of people who see people do stuff on social media and they start to judge themselves need to realize that, yes, it may look pretty on the outside and be like, oh my gosh, she got, funding to do this. I probably won't write on the post, oh, by the way, I spent my money funding this. But it's just knowing that with what you have, you can do something with it. And also understanding that if God gave you a dream, and he probably didn't give you, $1 million rands to start it, then you maybe didn't need $1 million rands to start it. Like, God wouldn't give you a dream to like taunt you and haunt you and make you miserable. Oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to fund it? If you have a dream, you need to know that you have everything you need in that moment to make it happen, even if it doesn't seem possible. And I think the first thing that unlocks that consciousness in a person is gratitude. When you're ungrateful, you probably won't see the things around you that you can turn into something bigger. When you concentrate on all the problems that you have, and we all have problems, we all have hard times, we all have difficult issues that we go through. But when you allow that to become louder than the positive things in your life, then you're going to drown in this hole of woe is me, and life is sad, and life is bad, and neglect all of the things that God has blessed you with to multiply. And so I think it starts with gratitude. I always say that if you're not grateful for the tree in front of you, you probably won't be curious enough to ask yourself, can this tree become furniture? Can it become a chair? If you're always like, oh, the sun is not out, it's raining, you're probably going to miss the things that God has put in front of you to say, hey, look, turn this thing into, something bigger. Then you probably won't have the affinity to try and use what you have around you. The same goes with Candid Conversations. All I used was my laptop, Wi-Fi, and made it happen. When I first started it, I didn't really invest any money into it because a lot of the things are free as well online. And so it was knowing that and being curious enough to see, okay, I have a passion for writing. What tools are available online to expand that? And that's how I created it. So it's being grateful for the talents that you have, the very fact that, you're a radio presenter, you are a great speaker, you're able to connect with people. That's a gift. You're not entitled to that. God can literally say, hey girl, you ain't speaking no more. He can mute your voice. You could drink acid and stop speaking, right? So we have to be grateful for the talents that we have, because someone else next to us doesn't have them. And someone else next to us would love to be able to speak, but maybe their gift is creating stuff, So I think it starts with being grateful for the talents that you have. It starts with being grateful for the resources that you have around you. So stop complaining and open your eyes to what's in front of you. And then the third thing is realizing that you have everything that you need, and don't look at what other people have. Don't look at other people's journeys. If you need to take a break from social media for a minute, take it, zoom out and tap out, and and look at what you have in front of you. And I think those three things should definitely be enough to motivate you and to inspire you to use what you have to create something bigger.
Yeah, so the key here is to be open-minded and also to have that passion, that drive. My last two questions. How would you motivate someone who is demotivated because of this pandemic and they want to start something?
Yo, that's a big one. Partly because I think we probably all had that phase when the pandemic started, or when levels kept changing, and like, oh, not again. But essentially what I'd say is that the world is changing in a way that we don't know, because the future is no one can predict the future. So the future is changing, and I think the best way to try and cultivate a good life, even if you're stuck at home every day, and that can get very frustrating. The biggest thing you can ask yourself every day when you wake up is, what can I offer to the world? A lot of people are walking around feeling very inadequate, feeling like they don't deserve good things, or they aren't capable or competent or smart or intelligent enough to make things happen. Many people feel like they don't have the resources to make it happen. And all these things I also felt, and sometimes still feel. But I think before beginning my journey as an entrepreneur and as a nonprofit or social entrepreneur as well, there were moments for a long time I felt like I wasn't enough to step into that person that I wanted to become, And so what flipped the switch was asking myself more often than not, what can I offer to the world? Because in that moment, you then give yourself something to do. Like I always say, I'll never be bored. Even if I'm just stuck at home, I'll find something to do. I'll find a new media brand to start. I'll find a new event to curate online, So when you wake up with the question every day of what can I give to the world, even in moments where you feel like the world is giving you nothing, the best way to live a purpose-driven life and a life with not motivation, but vision, because motivation sometimes goes away. There's days where you don't want to do certain stuff. But when you have that vision of all the potential and the businesses and the organizations and the channels that you want to start and give to the world, then that vision almost drives you, So two things, actually. I'd say two things is having a vision for your life where you feel you want to be and are called to be. And the second is to always wake up, with the intention of giving more to that vision to bring it to life. And I think that should help you overcome any negativity that you experience inside or outside. Because life is tough, but I think the beautiful thing is it's the toughness that brings out the motivation in us and the inspiration in us to bring all that we have on the inside out into the world.
Nana would see it's the toughness, these hurdles that we are going through, we're experiencing, is actually what we can use as a testimony to inspire other young people out there.
Right? 100%, because not everything comes out of the good moments. The good moments are great when you're celebrating. It's all nice, but it's really the moments where things are dark and when you fail, when you go through difficult moments, that's when you really have time to really look into yourself and ask yourself, what is it that I can do? You know what I'm saying? For me personally, I remember in my second year, I went through, that was, I think, the toughest year I've experienced thus far. Back in 2019. At that time, I was doing my second year studying a Bachelor of Accounting Science at WITS. That's the Chartered Accountancy route. And I realized in my second year that I may have made a very big mistake because I do not like accounting. It's not for me. And I started to become very depressed because I felt like a failure. I was like, oh my God, I've wasted so much money. I've wasted 2 years. And I'm like, what am I going to tell my parents? I had a bursary. So I was like, how am I going to pay back the money that they spent on these 2 years as well? And it was super scary. I remember there were days where I couldn't even wake up to go to lectures. The alarm would ring. I'd just snooze. I wouldn't open my curtains for like weeks on end because I just felt like such a failure in life, And I had a very supportive friend at that time on my label. I remember end of the year during November exams, I couldn't even bring myself to study just because I really, your soul just doesn't click with something. And I was at that point, and I obviously needed to pause to be able to transition into a different degree that I'm finishing off right now. So we used to storm into my room and say, Sthandiwe, I'm not going to tolerate your nonsense. So it's also great to have supportive people in those moments. But yeah, that time was really tough for me, and I did feel like a failure. But what happened in that time as well is that I started to get a lot more involved in things in the media space. I started getting opportunities to present YouTube shows. I started my own YouTube channel at that time, and I started to explore the creative aspect of Star that I largely ignored, because I think when I made the decision to study accounting in the first place, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and I was just following what people said made you money. Because I think if you're a Black kid, it's either you're a doctor, you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're an engineer. Anything outside the lines is like, oh, when's it actually, And so I really tried to play by, I guess, the boxes that people try to put us in, because I didn't really know myself that well. But second year, I started to realize, how there's more to Sthandiwe than I actually knew, right? So while I was having this major life crisis, I started to also walk into a different version of myself. That was scary also, because I was like, scary, you don't know what opportunities exist in that space. But that moment of that year, even though it was hard, and even though there were many decisions that I had to make that had financial implications in it, I grew in leaps and bounds. And it's the reason why I had the drive to start my media company. I wouldn't have realized my passion and love for media if I didn't go through that year, so that's just like one tough moment year rather, that I had, that showed me Uguti. Hard moments, yes, at the time they may feel very, very overwhelming, because I remember that year it got so bad to the point where I didn't even know if there was actually hope on the other side. But now when I look back, I realized that I was really worried about nothing. Like, everything I was worried about right now in 2021 is meaningless. So for anyone who's going through a failure, I'd say hang in there, because in a year from now, you're going to look back at it and realize that it had to happen for you to become the person that you are. If you're conscious enough to pray for the wisdom to see what's in the mess, because sometimes as well, we don't have the wisdom to see what this moment is teaching us or trying to reveal about us. And then that's how you end up, with years of depression under your belt. But I think if you're constantly praying for the wisdom to see in that moment, then it becomes easier to overcome challenges.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because if I were to look back on what I went through, because I actually wanted to go and study performing arts at AFTER, but then that was quite impossible because it was expensive. AFTER is expensive.
So expensive.
My parents, it's hectic. My parents said no. Going there, I tried to apply for funding, but I did not get, I didn't go through with applying for funding, because apparently my parents can afford to, but now they can't because I'm not the only child. So I had to forget about that dream for now, but I think I can still actually get back on into pursuing that dream in being in the performing arts industry. So yeah, I was at CTI. I matriculated in 2014. Yeah, so 2015, I was at CTI. I was there for like a semester, and then I dropped out. And you know how it is with private colleges, there's a contract. And if you do not adhere to that contract, you need to pay, I was scared to tell my parents. I was crying. It was hectic. I did not know what to do. So I asked my cousins to actually talk to my father for me, because I'm scared of my father. Oh my God.
We're the same.
But eventually, I had the courage to actually speak with my parents, and I eventually dropped out, went to Damelin, and then I did PR diploma, and then I went to DUT to do my BTech. Now I'm doing my master's actually. Yeah, so right now I'm doing my master's and I'm looking back. Thank you. And I'm looking back at, yes, we need more of us. We need more educated Black girls out there. And looking back at 2015, I could actually laugh at myself. The blessing, obviously I couldn't see that back then. Yeah, so okay, God has been good, and I understand. You're just sure you're able to, while you're at the mess, you can't see the beauty behind it. And with all of these hardships that we are facing, it actually makes us more relatable with other people. Right. So, like the story behind Sthandiwe, they'll be like, hey, what's Sthandiwe? She went through A, B, and C. Now I'm going through A, B, and C. So if she can do it, I can also do it. Exactly. So that's what I love about, so that's what I love. I would love for more people who are successful in what they're doing right now to share more of their
failures and humble beginnings.
Their failures. Yes. Yeah, because that's what makes, that's what motivates people the most.
100%.
Because people tend to compare their chapter 1 with people's chapter 10, not knowing that person's chapter 1, they went through the most.
100%. And for me, the people who sort of also keep me in shape and I feel like I'm not doing enough or being enough is people like Oprah. And whenever I want to complain about my life, people like that come in mind because I've never been raped. I've never had a child, as a teenager and miscarried it. And she went through all those things, and when I read her story and listen to her speeches and talks, I'm reminded that no matter what you think you're going through right now, someone who is very, very successful has been through worse. So that means you have the capacity to handle what you're going through. And also, what I recently sort of experienced was, anxiety over how I was going to actually execute all the media brands I wanted to launch under Msomi Media. Because it's also an industry where you're not going to make R1 million, after 3 months. It takes time, and so I just did a bit of research into Oprah's company, her own, the own network. And I just wanted to find out how she built, her big media empire. And in as much as we see her now, she's so successful and she has this network and all these shows are playing. I realized and saw in the research that her company wasn't really making profits for a good 7 years. Right. And it was still rolling out content, it was still producing. And when she talked about those moments, she does open up and she's vulnerable enough to say that she was anxious as hell about it. She, felt like she took on way more than she could handle. For her as well, it was quite difficult because she moved from being on such a successful show for 20 something years and starting your own company. It's not an easy transition. And the media was also saying that, has Oprah failed? Has Oprah taken on more than she could handle? So she's also experiencing that. So when I realized that when I look at her as the people who inspire me, I need to also know the flip side of her story, which is when she did start her company, it didn't skyrocket from the first go. She made mistakes, she went through stuff. And so for me, it then gave me the resilience I need to say, even if things take time, even if there's mistakes, even if there's failures along the way, it's normal. So if Oprah went through it, then girl, bye, sit down, calm down, with a variety, most of time, but don't give up after 1 month. It's gonna be okay. So I think also people should take the time to read up on the people that they look at as inspirations, because a lot of the time those people will have interviews or articles where they share their failures, and if they don't, then find another role model because that person isn't worth following.
One last question: who is your favorite author and why?
Oh, that's
your favorite book?
That's a tough one. I think I'll touch on one recently that I read, and it's actually someone who has inspired me for a very long time. Sheryl Sandberg, her book Lean In. It was actually a gift that I got from a friend for my birthday this year. And I read the book and I was just so inspired by how daring she is. Those women who just dare to be that woman who just makes it happen and who is fearless and who stands for what she believes in. Because in the book, she talks about a lot of the challenges that she's faced as a woman, in being the COO of Facebook. She was also involved in the management of Google as well. So she's been in these big companies with a lot of males, and she shares her experiences about how she had to lean in, to the power that she had within herself. But also throughout the book, she goes through what hold women back in the work industry, and how different she is from the woman who allows situations to hold them back. So when as I read the book and I started to find out more of her experiences and how she reacted to them, I realized that it's important as an entrepreneur or someone in the workplace, if you have a job, to be daring, to lean into the power that you have within yourself and be daring. And I say that Sheryl Sandberg has been quite an inspiration for a long time, because I remember probably early on in high school, I remember watching her TED Talk. I think it's one of her biggest TED Talks on YouTube. And she was talking about women in the workplace. And it was the first time for me seeing a woman just talk about women being badasses and not being not being scared about it. And it stuck in my mind for a very, very long time. So when I read the book, it was just an affirmation of the need to be daring. So I'd say for any woman watching this, who will watch this, definitely read Lean In. That's an incredible book. So that's been my favorite thus far. I have a lot of favorites, but recently that's my favorite.
All right. I will sure do try and get a hold of that book and read it myself. Thank you so much, Sa, and congratulations for what you have done so far. I'm
Thank you.
inspired, hoping that you've inspired many more females, hoping that laba basazoyibuka le video lena on YouTube, that they will definitely be inspired and also find you as a role model as I do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you a lot.
congratulations to you for doing this. This is a huge leap. And it's not easy, trust me, as someone who also does interviews. I know what the fuss is like of getting guests and executing it. So executing it and making it happen. I'm so proud of you. And I can't wait for this platform to grow and prosper. And I know you're going to do big things.
Thank you so much. And all the best for your future endeavors.
Yeah, bonuses.
All right, young minds, hoping that you have been inspired and sent from the Kulu with this interview that I've had with Sthandiwe Msomi. Thank you. Please do like, subscribe, and comment. Bye.